What a fun time, man. Boys are out looking tonight.
Here he is. He didn't go 50 yards. I just found him. Can you get over this?
Oh my God. Did that seriously just happen?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the White Knuckle podcast, episode number 151. Really, it's episode number one since the rebirth, if you will, of the podcast. We took about a 2, maybe even a 3-year break. In that time, a lot of things have happened. I worked with Midwest Whitetail a little bit, managing their podcast, and eventually wanted to do my own again. And so here we are, episode 151. We're thankful that we could be joined tonight by Dan Infalt, and he's graciously accepted the invite to drive over here to downtown Evansville. Welcome, Dan. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. What I gotta ask, what's new? It's been a long time since we've had anything but
I was thinking maybe you fell off the earth.
Well, starting this real estate business on my own with my partner and all of the things that entailed. Obviously, as you well know from starting your own company, it's a lot more work than what you expect. Always, isn't it? It's kind of like deer hunting. It never ends. There's always something going on, and so I did fall off the face of the earth. I didn't spend a ton of time hunting. Last year, the year prior I did, but last year, kind of a weird situation. The lease that we had over in Marquette County, the fella that owned it passed away, and he had his will set up in one way or another, and it didn't work out the way we expected it to. So we recognized the value of an opportunity and took it, and now I'm hunting in a different part of the state, back where I was before, and you've been on that ground. I still have yet to kill a buck there. Well, that's not true. I did kill a buck last year. I did post it. I wasn't too ecstatic about it. It was one of those freaky deals, as you well know, when you're self-filming. I turned, actually Gavin was with me. He was hunting about 300 yards away on a food plot, and I just happened to turn. I saw the deer, I saw the frame. I knew there was a big 8-pointer. I hadn't run any trail cameras there or anything like that. I turned, I looked, I saw the frame, and I'm like, oh, that's got to be that big 8-pointer. And didn't spend a whole lot of time looking at him, and I usually wouldn't until he got closer, you know. We were just talking about eyesight a little while ago, and mine isn't as good as it used to be, or maybe ever was. But as the deer got closer, and I'm getting ready, because he's basically, what he's doing is he's paralleling these does to catch their wind. Wind was out of the south, he was on the north side of them, and he was just paralleling him, trying to catch up to him to parallel him and wind him. And it just blew my mind that I looked down, and for the first time in I don't know how many years of filming, my camera arm, the top band or the top strap had let go, and it's like, and I'm like, oh crap, what do you do? So I never looked at the deer again. He ended up going one way, and I tried to fix the camera, and a long story short, I was able to hold the camera with my right knee. And he came into 31 yards, and I drew back, and I just thought it was that deer, and that's my excuse, and everybody's gonna beat me up for that, but that's the only deer I've killed there. So what's up with you, and the last couple of years?
Last year I had a real hard year. The year before was great. The year before I shot a target
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a great
Right
deer.
Right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And then you went to every state that you could possibly.
Yeah. And it didn't kill anything in those places. But last year I had a tough year. I had, I really go hardcore after, just bucks. Obviously, that I'm looking for a specific animal.
Sure.
And I was hopping around trying to locate one early, and something started going on at Dave's farm where all of a sudden the camera started going off like crazy. I didn't get any real big, but something was going on. So I go over there, and I went into what's kind of like an observation stand, but I hadn't seen anything big on the cameras, and it was kind of like a late afterthought hunt where I had a couple hours and I just, okay, I can get in there quick. It's next to the road. Got in there, got set up, and I thought, well, this is one of those hunts where I'm watching from a distance, and I know does come through here, and I want to take one for meat. I'll take one on this hunt, and I'll watch with the binoculars, this big open area, and I can see everything going on. The does come out, and they walk past, and I decide to shoot one. And I shoot one, and it runs out in front of me and dies. And while it's dying, and I'm filming it, filming what happened. I look over, and there's a buck standing in the field, kind of watching. It had to be there the whole time, but there's a couple trees over there, kind of blocking my view.
Right.
I'm like, where did this thing come from? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that might be a shooter. It looks like a pretty decent buck. And I'm watching him, and I get my bow in my hand, and I'm watching him. All of a sudden, out of my peripheral, I see something underneath me, and there's this giant buck underneath me.
At Dave's.
Yeah. Never seen him before. And so I draw my bow, and he walks into 10 yards underneath me, and all of a sudden just locks up and looks up like this. I don't know why. He stares at me, and his eyes get big, and you just feel he's going to run. And at like 8 yards, I'm thinking I can put it right here, right down into the vitals.
Sure.
And I shoot him, and I hit where I'm aiming. And the deer takes a couple stumbles back and runs off. And I had to track that thing across 3 properties. And that arrow got about a foot of penetration. It had to be right up against the vitals. And just didn't get enough penetration. It had to be right there. I mean, there was lung blood, so I don't know what happened, but I didn't get the buck. And then when I finally determined I didn't get it, and I used up all my resources, checked all the properties I could, and talked to everybody I could, I started hunting again. And right away got into a real big buck on some public land. And took a 40-yard shot at it broadside, and it ducked on the shot, and I hit the spine. And instead of just dropping, the arrow exploded in a million. Well, the head blew off, and the arrow cracked all over the place. And the deer ran off, and I got no penetration. The broadhead stuck into the spine. And I tracked that deer in a huge circle and actually followed it right back underneath my tree stand. If I would have stayed in the tree instead of been tracking it. But ended up not getting.
Hold on. You shot it. You hit the spine. You tracked it. It ended up coming back under the tree.
Walked right directly underneath the tree stand within 5 yards.
I wonder how many times that's happened in this world.
But it probably wouldn't have if I didn't track it, because I did bump it. So, it was a painstaking year. I mean, I had some problems with my equipment and stuff, and I think I got all that stuff worked out this year. I had 4 opportunities at big bucks last year, and came out empty-handed. And this year I'm going in it with a fire under my rear end. So I'm going to start out in Nebraska in a couple weeks here on the opener, which is the first. Never been there before. Been studying maps, talking to people I know that have gone out there, that I look up to as great hunters, and talking to some local people, getting a feel for it, which properties I should hit, where I should go, where I should locate. And Josh is going out there too. Josh went there last year, and when he went out there, he went kind of like I'm going this year, blind. Just went out there to some stuff day before the season, he went for a little walk and walked into a draw and jumped a big 10-pointer. And then right away he called me and we talked about it. And then before he even hunted, we did a show and discussed what he was going to do. And he was like, how are we going to go about this? I jumped this deer, but it didn't seem like he really knew what I was. He just kind of backed off, didn't even run. And I was like, well, if you get into this ravine he's coming out of, and you get like right here where his bench is, it should pull your thermals this way, and I think you'll have a shot. And everything worked textbook in the next day, first hunt. Right away the buck came walking right the way it was supposed to, and he shot it. So he really doesn't have a lot of experience either, because he had one day of hunting and killed his buck in the first place he looked at.
Not a bad deal.
He's going to go back with Gary, and I wanted to do a hunt early season too, and I thought, why not go to the same state, but I don't want to hog his area. There ain't a lot of public land in Nebraska. There really isn't. So I mean, if you put 8 like-minded guys in the same area, I mean, it's like kind of like the public land challenges. You know, we all got to tell each other where we're hunting, because when we look at maps, we look at them the same when we end up in the same spots.
Right.
You know, so I'm going to go to the whole other end of the state and try a different area.
Interesting.
And we're going to do it like team against team. I'm going to have Eric and Rick and Jacob, and we're going to see who comes out with the, better bucks.
And it's all public.
Yeah.
All
I mean, I really don't want to go hunt, manage ranches and things like that. Personally, I mean, I'm not against it, but to equal ground. But I don't think anybody's going out someplace and if you knock on a door and somebody says, yeah, you can hunt here, that's no different than common ground for anybody else,
Right.
So
I think that some of the
pride when I kill one on public land, because or when I'm hunting.
and that's just as rewarding as killing one on any kind of land, regardless of whether it's in your home state or not. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into that. I think probably, as I think back, the best time that I've ever had hunting is that year that I did the public. And that was because someone, I don't remember what show it was, but I had never met you. I'd heard a lot about you through Todd. And this guy had, basically said, any idiot can kill a good buck on private land. You'll prove me something if you can shoot one on. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Well, I had a nice piece to hunt, but at the same time, I was at the point where it was a relatively small piece, and now I'm blessed with a bunch of ground to hunt, and it's different. But back then, it was just like the whole world was available. It was public, and I happened to have this podcast I was doing, and Todd said, you got to call this guy named Dan Infault. And I'm like, okay. So I will never forget sitting downstairs in the basement talking with you with a list of 3 pages of notes, and I got through a quarter of 1 page. But through the years and the podcast, I've learned a lot in talking to you about what your strategy was. And that leads into a good question. It's public or private? Because
the first thing I'm looking for is the bedding. I want to know where the big buck's bed.
How did I know he was going to say that? I mean,
then I want to just stay away from that until it's time to kill. And when it's time to kill, I want to be as close as I can possibly be to where I believe he's bedded. And so when he gets up, he only goes 50 or 100 yards and gets shot.
okay. I'm just gonna stop right there for just a quick second. And it's one thing that has always intrigued me about you. You are so sure when you're looking at a bed. We did it when we went for a walk through the land that I've got over in Boscoville. You are so sure that that's a buck bed. Mm-hmm. And you seem to be right. Just about every time that you pointed it out to me. Mm-hmm. What got you there? Is it just experience and studying these animals, trail camera photos? What?
No, it's a lifestyle. It's a thing I've been doing my whole life. For most people, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but it's a fad, like you said. It's the new thing to do. I've been doing this since before it was cool. Yeah. I've been doing it for 40 some years, you know.
Right.
I didn't have a mentor. My dad worked 2 jobs so that we could afford to eat and have a house, because it was hard times back in those days. And my brothers all went off to Vietnam and came back, didn't want to hunt, or one of them would never touch a gun again after he came back from Vietnam. And I was basically hunting on my own. I was going out back and just learning how to hunt. I didn't have anybody to tell me that you needed to stay away from bedding areas. You had to, you know, that you have to do this. And there was a lot of stigmas with hunting, where people tell you this is how you have to do it. You have to wait a half an hour to track them. You have to, you never go near the bedding. You know, you hunt halfway between the field and the bedding. You know, those kind of things. I didn't have that. So what I saw was that the only time I had daylight shots or seen these big bucks in daylight was when they were coming out of areas I knew as bedding, and they wouldn't get very far. So I gradually, you know, just kept creeping that. And eventually, when I had a buck that finally got to a size that you really desired killing that buck, I really wanted to kill him. I felt I had to learn his bedding, and I went in and tried to figure out all that bedding and ended up killing him in one of his beds. Not with a gun, but I figured out where he was bedding, crept up on him, killed him. And then I started doing that repeatedly and started figuring that out. And it just morphed from there. And when you look at these bedding areas for 40 years and you're walking into beds constantly every spring, you know, I scout more than anybody. I'm out there daily, walking these bedding areas, new spots, traveling around the state, going to other states. I mean, you know, just like we just went to Michigan for a deer show. Everybody went to the bars. I mean, you go on to shows. Everybody goes to the bars and out to eat afterwards. We went scouting. You know, let's see what the local woods have, not the local bars. You know.
Sure.
And when you start looking at these beds over and over again, you start seeing trends. You start figuring things out. You start understanding things. You start understanding just exactly how a buck beds and why. And you can look at a woods and go, oh, he's going to be right there. You know, you can go in there and there's the bed. And it's really that easy. Now, there's some difficulty to it. I mean, otherwise I'd be killing giants every year, right? But really it's a matter of when you get that down, where they bed and why, then you also got to add in the ingredient of where do all the hunters hunt and why? Because hunters see things in a different way than the deer do. And I see it as these big bucks live in spots where there ain't big timber and stuff in most cases. They find edges and stuff where people can't get a tree stand in, where they can't go, or it's off on the side of a road, or, you know, it's on if you're in hill country, it's on a ridge overlooking a parking lot right alongside the road. Nobody's going to walk straight up to his bed. They'd have to go in a huge circle to get there. There's always some sort of spot that diverts people from it. And it's not always remote. You know, a lot of cases it is. You know, I'll take a look at a property and I'll mark off 90% of it as that's where people go. And in that last 10%, I want to find that terrain stuff that I was talking about that I know big bucks bed in. And I can rapidly get onto those areas where those bucks bed.
It's a lot of work, and it's certainly not a given every time. I wish that I could say that I employed everything that we ever talked about.
You know what the greatest part about this stuff is you know, the average guy, he goes and he gets a lease or a small farm, he gets a property someplace, and he's like, okay, I got a good property here. And he probably does. And say he's on a real good property. It might take him 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years. But then he's got it down pat. He's got his stands laid out. And he rotates through his stands. And, you know, he gets his good buck here and there. You know, maybe every now and then one slips through. He doesn't kill it or whatever. But that guy might hunt that farm then for 20 years. What does he learn? Where does he advance from there? I'm out hunting a different property every day. I'm learning a new buck every day. I'm going out hunting different ways. When you're always out there playing chess with these bucks, trying to figure things out and seeing what works and what don't, you learn a hell of a lot about deer.
What do you think is the best lesson that you've learned in the woods, regardless of whether it's about hunting? regardless of hunting life, what's the best lesson that you've learned?
Well, the best lessons are never about actually hunting. Probably the best lessons I've learned are about family life and stuff. Literally, the woods is my church. I think we kind of briefly discussed that as we were walking in here.
Yeah.
But to me, I mean, I live this crazy life where I'm running around doing all this stuff for everybody and workshops and working in houses and shops and building things and racing from this to that, not even sleeping. The only time I have any relaxation, the only time I get to be me and be who I am is when I'm in the woods. It's when I'm feral, when I'm out there.
Feral.
You know, and that, you know, is when you have your time to reflect and everything else, you know. And I think the biggest lessons I've learned is that, you got to remember that, like hunters got a big ego, you know, especially when they're younger, you know, and I've gotten over that ego, but I certainly had one when I was younger, you know, and I would pound and everything would be about hunting, every vacation, everything I do, you know, every minute, every day after work. And I wouldn't be with the kids on Halloween because that's, you know, rut. And, you know, if I had my home state tagged, I'd be in some other state. So my kids wouldn't see me on Halloween. My son, who had a birthday in November, wouldn't see me on his birthday. He'd just find a card or a gift or something. You know, my wife wouldn't see me on her.
That you acknowledged what was in front of you, and you guys, I'm sure it's like anything else, it's not easy, but you made it work. And,
Yeah.
And I think that's huge.
You know, people look at me as this great part of it. Your partner in life is going to make a huge impact on what you do. Even your partner in hunting. You know, hunting, when you look at it, if you go in with a negative guy, we all know him. There's a guy in your group who, you know, everybody's got it. Who you know,
you know who you are.
I climbed up that hill. I can't get up there. I feel bad. I want to go home. You know, that will just pull you down. You got to have the guy that goes, get your ass up and get up that hill. Get over that hill. We got to get that buck. You got to be with that guy, the guy that's got your back, the guy that you got his back, he's got yours, and you're both in it together. Or don't go with a partner at all. You know, go by yourself, because anytime you get around somebody negative, you won't be thinking right yourself. Right. It'll frustrate you. It'll hold you back. You know, that said, my best hunting has been solo. I've killed my biggest bucks on solo hunts. I like being with friends and stuff because it's fun. It's camaraderie. It's good times. But there's this thing where you're always worried about the other person. You're trying to set him up good, and then it's like, how's that going to interfere my hunt? And you know what I mean? Or you both go into the same area. If that guy makes a noise, he affects you. You know what I mean? But if I go in by myself, I'm not worrying about, is that guy going to be worried about me if I'm late getting to the truck? Is it, you know, is this going to happen or that? I'm just focused on the hunt, and I could care less about the rest of the world. And that's when I do my best.
And I think if you talk to a lot of professionals just overall, that they would say the same thing. That's when they do their best. Absolutely. I believe that, at least. You know, we said we were going to take some live calls. I've got a whole lot of stuff bouncing around in my brain, and I know I've missed a couple. But if people want to, if there's anybody out there that wants to ask Dan a question, go ahead and give us a call. We're just going to continue having a conversation here. We're going to wrap it up in about 25 minutes. Man, time goes fast. We're going to wrap it up in 25, 30 minutes unless we have an abundance of calls. But tell me, let's get off hunting for a little bit and talk a little business. How's Beast Gear doing?
Beast Gear's doing great. Mario Traficante, my business partner, has really taken that by the horns and per se, and has really built that business up. That guy's an incredible guy with running that business, and pretty much I just get out of his way and let him do what he wants, because he really understands that end of it better than I do. But The stands are selling real well. The sticks are selling real well. We got a lot of stuff in the works. We're building a lot of stuff. I see a great future.
How do you see, I haven't watched a lot of outdoor television, honestly, in the last 2 years. Whatever I've consumed has been on YouTube or, what was available on wherever it was that I was, whether it was on my phone or a TV. But how do you see the saddle hunting world evolving like it has? I was really shocked, honestly. I sat down and watched an outdoor channel show for the first time in at least 2 years, live at least, and I saw so many references, not necessarily from the show, but in commercials and things like that, to saddles. Have you dabbled in that at all, or are you still a tree stand guy?
I'm a tree stand guy.
Always going to be?
Yeah, pretty much. I've tried saddles and stuff, and when I look at them, I see some big issues with the way I hunt and with getting it done with saddles. One thing is you're not saving any weight. When you add up the saddle, all the stuff that goes with it, the platform, it's the same amount of weight. And if you got a narrow stand and stuff, it's just sitting on your back. It's so light you don't feel it anyways.
Right.
So the weight thing isn't an issue. I can use whatever I want. But where I hunt, where I find big bucks is usually on this edge cover. We're getting in real thin cover, slim trees, and you're getting in a tree that might be 5 inches in diameter, and you're getting 7 feet off the ground so that you can shoot over cattails or something, and you're skylit. There's no other trees around. The last thing I want to do is hang out from that tree. And I'll have saddle hunters tell me, well, you can lean up against a tree and use it like a tree stand. Why not use a tree stand? I don't want a tree in front of me either. A lot of those guys feel like they have to have the tree in front of them for cover, which they probably do. But then if the deer goes left or right, you got to be able to get your bow on either side of that strap and stuff. And I'll tell you what, when those mature bucks come in, you blink and they see you. I got to take that shot as soon as I can. I get that stand on the side of the tree that's facing the deer, and I use the back of the tree behind me as cover. I'll turn my body broadside so that I'm as thin as possible, and I blend in with that tree, and I'll hold the bow so the limbs blocking my face so that they don't see my round face. And the very first ethical shot they give me, I'm shooting. Because when those mature bucks get within a certain range, they are so apt of figuring you out, of sensing that danger around them. They don't in public land, they don't get to be 5, 6, 7 years old by not surviving or having a few of those bad incidents happen. Most of the big bucks that I get, when they're mature animals, you find broadheads in them, you find bullets in them, you find holes in their ears, and it's crazy what they go through to get to that age. They're not walking into a setup and not checking things out, and so for me, I have to blend in with the tree a lot better, and I have to, you probably get away with that type of hunting a lot more when you're in tree cover,
right? When
you're in timber,
right? Maybe
on ridges and stuff. But really, when I hunt hill country, when I hunt the ridges between bedding areas, you get the day cruisers. Man, you really don't see a lot of mature bucks. You see some shooters, a lot of 2 and 3 year olds, but you don't see a lot of 5, 6, 7 year olds. You get those things in those crazy places where you're hunting. Even in rut, I'm getting them in bedding areas.
Really?
The few mature bucks I've gotten cruising, it's been a ridge that's really short, right between 2 real thick bedding areas. They just don't want to move around in daylight. Now, that gets different if you get on, like, say, some private ranch where that thing grew up without having problems walking down those ridges. But when you're hunting public land, you just don't see that kind of movement for those mature animals. And I'll tell you, most guys that hunt that property, I'll hear these comments like, you ain't shooting those deer here. I see you hunting here and stuff or whatever, but where are you getting those bucks? Because I've been hunting this land for 10 years. I've never seen one that size. Well, yeah, you're hunting it wrong. Because where those deer move in daylight is a very small fraction of that property.
Don't you think that a 5, 6, 7-year-old deer. I think a 4 and 5-year-old deer are very different animals.
Yep.
Certainly a 3 and 4-year-old are different animals, but once they cross 5, I feel like they change significantly, and then they probably change more and more every year. But I believe the biggest difference, in my opinion at least, is at 5 years. And they know the game. They don't have to be out cruising. What you have to be is in their bedroom, because they know what's going on. They know when it's going to happen, when it's not going to happen, and all that stuff.
I recently broke down my wall for my own reasons. I'm an analytics kind of guy. I always want to know why things happen. I think everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And I looked at my kills, and I looked at, I'm not above shooting a 2 or 3-year-old if it's a nice animal. Like, 130-inch animal is a nice animal. So I've got a few of those, but I got a pretty good handful, well over a dozen that go over
good.
5 years old.
Right.
And when you look at my top 15 bucks that are all over 5 years old, when you look at those bucks and you look at the analytics, it changes completely. It's like a flip from the younger bucks. The younger bucks have been shot out of stands and funnels. They've been shot on ridge edges. Ridge sides. They've been shot on food plots, things like that. Real close to bedding, like kill plots and stuff like that. But when you look at the mature animals I've killed, the ones that I know are 5 or older, the overall majority of them were killed on the very first time I ever sat a spot. And the ones that don't fit in that, it's pretty much like the next year in the same spot. The overall majority of them, I was within 100 yards of them of where they bedded, and the overall majority of them, I was hunting the exact buck I shot, which isn't the case with the younger ones. It's like you really got to focus on mature animals to kill mature animals. It's like guys, when you're hunting, guys will they got a progression they go through. You first start hunting, you want to kill a deer. First, you just want to kill one. You know what I mean? So eventually you kill a deer. Then you want to kill a buck. Then you get to the point where you want to kill lots of bucks. And then it's like, that ain't a challenge. You want to kill bigger bucks. And eventually you get to the point where you're killing 2 or 3-year-old bucks annually. And a lot of guys get to that, and they get that cocky arrogance about them, like, hey, I'm doing better than everybody around me.
Right.
But the problem with that is when they get to that point, that's where a lot of people stop. They don't learn how to hunt mature bucks, because if they make a step towards that, they'll have less luck, because you got to hunt them in a different way. You got to think, when I'm going to these bedrooms and I'm putting them in a specific spot, hunting a bedding area, that there's a pretty good chance no one's home that day, right? Where you're hunting a ridge during rut, deer are going to run past. You can shoot 2-year-olds just about every year, right? So you literally got to just throw that out in the garbage and start hunting mature bucks. And you can hunt mature bucks and still shoot nice 2 and 3-year-old deer and be happy with that, but you'll never shoot mature bucks by hunting 2 and 3-year-olds. You got to hunt mature bucks. Then you can shoot 2 and 3-year-olds. You'll still get opportunities, but you'll never shoot a mature buck. Well, you might, but you might shoot 2 in your lifetime, or 3. You know what I mean? But on public, anyways, you'll get 2 or 3 in your lifetime. Where if you hunt, mature bucks, you can do it more repeatedly, and get to the point where every couple of years you shoot a real big one. You can still shoot the in-between ones, but you got to hunt those mature bucks. It's a different animal.
Absolutely.
It's I always refer to it as, hunting rabbits and expecting to shoot a pheasant, because they don't even act the same.
No, the dog reacts the same, but the animal doesn't. How big of a problem do you think it is for hunting overall, or an issue overall, that folks have just put so much weight on killing a big buck before they've earned it. In other words, you and I would imagine we were the same growing up. We started out shooting fork horns, and I don't know how many I shot, and then you just progress through the years. And through those things, you learn some tough lessons, right?
Right.
And those tough lessons taught you, kind of like life, they're painful, but they teach you something. And I think you're the guy that I first heard say you've got to learn to love the fail.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have this, this onslaught of hunters going out in youth season and things like that, how important is it, do you think, and I don't want to get into a political discussion, if you will, but how important is it that you think those kids or young hunters, whether I mean young hunter as, if you just started hunting, how important is it that you go out and establish your skill set first before you start measuring your success by inches?
When you say that, I can't help but think about my childhood and the way childhood is now. And when I grew up, like I said, I started on my own. I just went out back and hunted. And nowadays we can't let our, 10-year-old kids just run around with weapons out in the woods behind their houses. It's a different time. But back in those days, it was common, but you had to earn yourself. I was a little bit of an exception. I mean, most people did hunt with their fathers or with a brother or something like that. But when a kid would come into camp, when you look back in the 70s or, in that era, they had to earn their way into camp. That was being like, he's becoming a man. Now he's invited in with the big boys, right? Now you get to do man things. You went from childhood to being a man, and you had to earn, going to deer camp. And when you went to deer camp, those people took that serious. The men had their spots, their areas that they hunted. And you were expected to find your own area. You weren't hunting the good spots. You were hunting, Jimmy can go over there. He can go sit that spot over there or sit in that area, and you had to earn it. You know what I mean? Where nowadays, now you're competing with cell phones, you're competing with computers, you're competing with video games and stuff, where we didn't have any of that when we were kids. And we have a youth season. So these dads are taking these kids out. You don't even have to wait till you're 12 anymore. I mean, they're taking them out at 8 or 9 years old. Yep. In a season just for them, and they sit beside them, and bring them a cherry Coke and a peanut butter sandwich and set them up just perfect and say, okay, wait a little bit. Yeah, there's one that's got 42 points. Shoot that one. And then the kid shoots it, and he's like, did I do good, Dad? Yeah, you did good. You did good. It's not earning it. It's not. There's something about that earning that first buck where there's that feeling of accomplishment, and we're taking that away. And now they feel like they're owed that. And then when they can't just go out and get them, they're frustrated and stuff, and they grow bored of the hunting, and they end up leaving hunting.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem.
A big problem.
And that's what it's really been my mission, has been to make people better hunters and hunters better people. That's always been my mission. And if you can teach people how to hunt, or teach them how to be successful, not necessarily how to hunt, but how to be successful through work, they're going to appreciate hunting, they're going to stay with hunting, and they're going to be better people because of it. Because I think hunting makes you a better person. I mean, maybe there's a lot of people out there that probably disagree with me, but I can always find common ground with a hunter. I have a hard time finding common ground when I go into the city or I'm around people. It's just I feel lost, But I've always gravitated towards hunters. I think they're better people. And I think the more people we have hunting, the better. And it always upsets me when I hear people say, you shouldn't do that because we got too many hunters to begin with. I need more land for myself. And it's like, what are you, greedy? More people out there? Well, maybe the buck size does go down. Just work a little harder. You know what I mean? It's not really about what you kill. It's about the journey. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It's I guess that's particularly in the professional world. That's the way I've lived my life. I've never not been paid for performance. And I don't ever want to be. I've been fortunate, I guess, and I think hunting blends really well with that. Sometimes you got to pay the dumb tax, as I say, or the price for continuing your education in order to win. And I hate losing, and it's no different in deer hunting. But at the same time, when I'm deer hunting, I've set an expectation for myself. But I also acknowledge the challenges that I have starting a new business. Melanie always likes to say that we're like firemen. When somebody calls, we have to go. Somebody wants to look at a property. In 10 minutes, we're going to cut this podcast short. No, we won't. But you know what I mean. You have to be committed, and you have to learn to work.
Yeah.
And work at your craft, and hunting's no different.
Right.
Hunting's no different at all.
We're kind of strange cats. There's a lot of hunters that'll never get what we're talking about. And it took me a long time to really understand this, but not all hunters are the same. I mean, some of them are in it for enjoyment. Some of them are in it to get away from their wives and stuff. To hunt the way I do or you do from knowing you, you have to enjoy hard work. You have to enjoy the grind. If you don't, you'd be miserable. I would never work as hard as I work to kill a deer at work. I'd quit. And they pay me at work.
Right. And sometimes, when you're out there, you question yourself, and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Mm-hmm. This is a lot of work. Gavin and I spent basically a Sunday hanging 10 trail cameras, and there's 50 more to go. It eats up a lot of time, but it eats me up inside, and it's something that I love. And it's you got to love the game, or you're not gonna be passionate about it. And I'm not saying you have to be passionate about it like we are, or like you are, or like someone else is. Just say do your own thing, and just make sure you're enjoying it. Because if you don't enjoy it, it's probably not worth doing.
Right, exactly.
Wouldn't you? Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can't think of a time that I didn't enjoy going hunting.
When as I get to the point where I'm at in life now, when people talk to me about hunting and they talk to me about deer, well, what's your most memorable deer hunt or whatever, it really isn't about the biggest bucks anymore. It's about the things I overcame during that hunt. It's about how you went through hell to get this deer or to fail, either or. But it's the journey, and it becomes more and more about the journey as you get older. It's more about the memories, and what memories do you have from? Yeah, I got that buck because I was able to get in on a $10,000 lease, and there's bucks all over the place. Hell of a story there, guy. But whether you're telling stories or not to yourself, I mean, for me, that last buck I got 2 seasons ago, that buck was 7 years old. I'd hunted him for years, had a history of him. I pulled my hair out trying to figure that buck out, and I put something together where I know exactly where that buck's going to be bedded. I was pretty sure of it. And the first hunt, I blew it, and I left him alone for the whole rest of the year and waited till the next year in that same spot so I wouldn't burn that spot, and killed him the next year. And to have that deer get out of the bed where I think he's going to get up, 75 yards in front of me, come to exactly where I think he's going to be and shoot him, that's a feeling of accomplishment that's hard to beat. I mean, that buck could have been 130 inches, and I would have been ecstatic over the way that went down. Obviously it was much bigger than that.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, you couldn't take me and put me on a 250-inch booner on somebody's private ranch. I mean, and I wouldn't have the same enjoyment. I mean, a lot of people would want that booner because of the number, But are you in it for a number, or are you in it for the enjoyment?
You know, I often use the analogy of and maybe it's not an analogy, but I often think about in my younger years duck hunting, and outside of Friesland, the little town that I grew up in, we had a place we called the shit pits. It was where all the wastewater went, and we always used to go out there and jump shoot ducks, and I'm like, this is stupid. I'd rather sit on a pond and get one duck to commit to flying into my decoys than sneak up on them and ground swat them or whatever it was that we were doing. More often than not, you'd ground swat one and tried to shoot the rest of them. But I found myself being really drawn to, I don't know, the art of it. And certainly there's an art to duck hunting, like there's an art to deer hunting. I mean,
Right.
They're a different breed, man. They just are. I've had some exposure the last couple of years to
I always
hunting.
laughed because you watch these duck hunters, and they will put waders on and go on these boats, and they'll half-ass almost kill themselves in these cattails and stuff. Where you know they're in muck that if they step in the wrong spot, they're going over their head, and they'll almost kill themselves to get a stupid duck. But you watch these guys deer hunt, and they won't even go into 2 inches of water go after these bucks. You know, it's
Yeah. There's plenty of that happens. I'm going to apologize to everybody for my inefficiency of the phone calls here. I've got an app on my phone that will screen out basically commercial robo-dialers because I just got so tired of my phone ringing and some idiot on the other line asking me when I wanted to buy my funeral insurance, and I'm like, am I dying? Or
do you know something I don't?
What's going on? But that's apparently blocked a bunch of these calls, so I'll apologize. I'll fix that for next time. I've got so many alerts on my phone. It's not even funny, but so I apologize for that. But you know, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about hunting, but it's not always talking about hunting, and it's not always talking about your secret strategy or, you know, whatever the case may be. I think that sometimes during hunting season, it's something that I wanted to ask you about for a long time, and I've thought about it several times, is how do you go about maintaining your sanity during season? Because I get in a tree, and I've got ants in my pants to begin with. So, and Todd would tell you that. Yeah, he would definitely tell you that. But how do you keep a positive attitude? Is it something that just comes naturally for you, or is there something that you go through in terms of a ritual?
It does kind of come naturally for me.
Yeah, you've always been a positive person.
I literally, every time I go hunting, I fully believe I'm going to shoot my target animal, or I wouldn't even go. I have to have that belief to really go about the way I go in the painstaking effort of getting in there quiet and everything. I really believe I'm going to kill that buck. And when it doesn't happen, you got to get up the next morning and believe that. One thing that helps me with that is all the scouting I do, the research I do, the studying maps and all that. It builds your confidence. It makes you believe in what you're doing. But really, the number one thing that gives you that confidence is when you go out there and you believe that buck is in point A and he's going to come by point B, and you know there's 10 billion trees in there, and that's the only tree you could kill him out of. Or you kill him out of the one tree out of the 10 billion trees. You know what I mean? That'll build confidence. Then you know that what you're doing works. You know, you can watch somebody on TV pull something off over and over and over again. It ain't like doing it yourself.
Right.
Once you get that one under your belt, it builds confidence. 2 builds more. So it's easy for me to say build confidence. It's harder for somebody who hasn't killed one. But the mapping, the scouting, the walking it, the looking at the bedding areas. I mean, you look at a bedding area and you see all the poop, you see the beds, you see the giant rubs in the beds and stuff, you see the exit trail, you see the tree. You're like, well, I know he beds here sometimes. I know he goes by that tree. And then you're taking your guess at what time periods he beds there and stuff. That's going to build confidence. It's going to make you believe in that spot. You know, a lot of people get shot down because they'll go hunt spots like that, and then nothing happens. Well, you got to remember, I've been doing this for years, and I look at those beds all the time, and I don't kill bucks all the time. I mean, most of the time I'm unsuccessful. You got to get that one time when you hit the timing right. He's there and you're there, you know. But the confidence of knowing that he beds there sometimes, and that this tree he can't win you from, you can get to, you know, without him knowing you're there. I mean, that should help with the confidence.
In the remaining time that we've got, which isn't a whole lot, I do want to talk a little bit of strategy. You know, what are we, August the 11th. The deer are, let's say, 30 days from losing their velvet. Probably pretty accurate. A lot of things are going to change inside of 45 days, right? How much stock do you put into what you're seeing now? In other words, let's say you've got you know, a big buck that you want to kill, and you see him consistently using this alfalfa field. I would say that if he's 5 or 6 years old, he's going to stay, and he's probably going to be, as long as you don't make him uncomfortable, he's probably going to be comfortable. How do you feel about that?
I've had some bucks that relocate. I've had some that don't. The majority of the time, the older ones do kind of stay in that area. Not always, but they don't have to be right where you see them. You know, it's kind of like trail cameras. Nowadays, everybody wants to put them where you kill deer. You know, this is where I hunt. I got a trail camera here, here, here. And these 10 spots, I got a cell cam. Those are the spots that I hunt. That ain't how I hunt. Cameras are to tell me that the deer is there that I want to kill. You know what I mean? Once I get a picture of them, my scouting, my knowledge is what kills that deer, not a camera. Now I look at, you know, the terrain and where he could be coming from, where could he be bedding. Like I said, there's only so many spots. You know, so like right now, last year I was hunting a very large 10-pointer, probably about 170 class, real nice animal. And he was there all through the season. So I know he's around. I kind of know that he hops around, but he stays in the same kind of general area. So last night was the first night I actually went out looking for him. And I figured where he would be based on acorns, and looked at the fields of that deer this year. And he will be very close to there, but not exactly where I saw him. And I kind of got a good idea where he's going to be. He's going to be in the acorns as they start dropping heavily. They're not dropping real heavy now, but those deer are eating the acorns up and then moving out into the fields. So if I wait a little bit time, you know, because there's just a small amount of acorns, but they're going to start dropping pretty heavy here. And then I'm going to have them go in a different direction. So now I know where he is. But my knowledge of the terrain and my years of hunting these things, I've kind of narrowed down. Okay, if he was there at 9 o'clock last night,
Right.
You know, where was he bedding? Now, this is a vast area of miles of, a couple miles of public swamp. I narrowed it down to 2 spots he's coming from. That's 2 hunts. Either I blow it or I kill him, but it's 2 hunts. And I think most people look at that like, he could be anywhere. But I've been doing it for years, and I get a kind of a grasp for that, you know.
He could be anywhere.
He could.
Who cares?
But me, I believe that he's in these 2 spots.
Right.
And that's what will give me success. You know, one of those spots is like a mile-something walk through water over my waist. So I better believe if I'm going to walk out there to hunt this thing.
Okay, so a mile walk in water over your waist.
Yeah, I guess the whole mile ain't like that, but half of it is.
You're not you. The guy that drills holes in the bottom of his boots.
Be glad I'm wearing clothes. Completely feral.
You know, I told Gavin when you know we were planning this, I'm like, don't be surprised if he wears an off the wall T-shirt. Oh man, anything else that you want to share before we go? I'd love to. I'd love to sit down and break down from beginning to end a scenario at some point. You know, I'd love to get into the mind of Dan Infald, if you will, just to see how you process the information that you're getting, and you know what value you put on that information, because so many people do it so many different ways, and there's not a one size fits all. I don't think that just because Dan does it, that's the only way that it's going to work. I know that the way Dan does it has worked pretty good in the past.
What I've been doing that really answers that a lot is those videos I've been putting up recently. I know in your busy life you're probably not watching them, but I do a lot of scouting videos.
Yeah, you busted me out on that already.
I show exactly what I'm finding and talk about why as I'm doing it. And then when I'm wrong, I tell you, okay, I was wrong and this is why, and now I see it differently as I go. And show what I'm seeing. And that's important because, you know, when I go into a bedding area, it ain't just finding bedding areas like people think. It's really about timing. Like I've done studies where I'll put cameras in bedding areas or on exits and entrances and stuff, and I'll watch when deer go in and stuff like that. And you start figuring out a lot of things. And one thing I figured out really quick was that there's about a 2-week period in most bedding areas where they're peak, where there's a big buck there pretty consistently. 2 weeks out of the season. And you got to figure out when that 2 weeks is. And, you know, you'll hear all these guys go, well, I'm waiting for the rut. I'm not hunting my best spot till it's rut. And it's like, I got a best spot early season. I got a best spot rut. I got a best, you know, right. and I got more than one. But I'm hunting based on what those deer are doing or whatever. I'm looking at that bedding area and I'm trying to determine why is that deer there? When is he here? Is he here on a certain wind? You got to be a detective. You know what I mean? So like in those videos, I show that. I go in and I figure it out, you know, and why is he here? When is he here? You know, it might be a bed that's based on acorns. And you'll see this all the time. You know, the acorn growth is kind of a biannual thing. And a guy will go in and he'll find this little bedding area that's just torn up with rubs. And you'll think, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to kill this buck. He's bedding on this point. He's coming out here to, you know, up this point, and I'm going to kill this buck. And then he comes that fall, and there ain't one rub. There is no sign of that deer. And he's like, well, what happened? This really, you know, I don't know what all those rubs were, but that deer must have been killed or something. And he'll move on, thinking the deer got killed or something. And the next year he comes in there, the acorns are you know, dropped, and he's like, oh, look at this. Oh, you know, it's an every other year thing. Yep. You know, some beds are, you know, early season because of some crop. Some of them are from some plant. And often what they are really focusing on, especially early season, isn't a crop. You know, it can be orange julienne, or it can be stinging nettles or something. But they'll focus on something like that. And you might have beds that focus on that, or bedding areas. You might have bedding areas that focus on rut, and they're only used for about a week. You might have late season bedding areas. You know what I mean? And you got to figure out, why is that deer there, and when is he there? What's he doing? What is the reason he's there? Sometimes you just don't know, right? Sometimes you're wrong. But if I don't know, I'm going to throw a few hunts at it. One early, one mid-season, one late, see what happens. Or maybe I throw a camera in there and I just leave it for the year and see when they bed there. You know, but there's a timing thing to it, you know.
So it's safe to say you spend a lot of time figuring out where they bed, and that's not probably.
It really is a chess game.
It is. It is. I admire the fact that you believe in yourself enough to go out every time believing that you're going to kill that deer. I don't know
what happens if you don't believe? You go out there and you might hunt the same spot I do, but you go out there and you're thinking about your problems at work. You're thinking about the long walk out of that swamp. I got to go a half mile through this water. And you leave a little early. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or you're thinking about something and you're not paying attention.
I know exactly what you mean.
And you're looking around, and all of a sudden you hear something, and you look over and there's a buck stomping at you because he saw you move your head, because you weren't paying attention, because he didn't think he was going to show up. You know, you kind of half-heartedly believed, like, I got to rule that spot out. You know, that'll kill you. You got to be there like a kid on Christmas Day, like, okay, he's coming. And every snap you hear, you got to be focused on, and if you're not in the game,
Yeah, absolutely. That was well said. It's a learned behavior, I think, to be able to do that. I don't think it's just something you all of a sudden wake up with one day. There's a certain amount of success and failure, a whole lot more failure that comes along with developing an attitude like that. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
And I think you'd also agree that the failure is more important than the success.
You learn from failing.
Right.
All those failures are what teach you to be successful. And it really isn't failure because you're learning something.
Right.
You're moving forward. You're growing. People always call the unsuccessful hunts failures. But when I'm hunting down an area, every one of those is leading me closer and closer to that buck. It's not a failure. It's part of the journey.
Absolutely. It's
sometimes even if you don't get that buck in the whole season, and it dawned on me like, oh my gosh, this is it right there. And it's that drive, it's the drive, it's the belief, it's all of that makes you do that, makes you go out there and find them and hunt them down and figure them out.
I think it's important that people understand that, you don't have to be as into it as Dan is or the next person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hunting is a personal thing.
Yep.
And, the last thing I want to do is tell everybody, this is exactly how you should be a hunter. You know what I'd like to see? People that are like-minded with me, like are aggressive hunters or whatever, to take their skill, look at what I do, use what they can, discard what they can't, and make it even better. And a lot of these young kids got something that I didn't or my generation didn't have. They got all the knowledge that people like me put out there. And now a lot of people are. When I started doing this, a lot of people were like, you can't give up knowledge. You don't give that out. It's not free. People need to earn that. That was common, all the way into the 90s. People would not help anybody.
Right.
You had to learn that on your own.
Right.
And now, and I hope I had something to do with it, pushing this stuff through and just, despite everybody getting mad about me telling people how to hunt, or not how to hunt, but helping them learn better ways to hunt, despite people getting mad about that, I think I helped a lot of people, and I think now a lot of other people are doing the same. You see people like the hunting public come up and just grow huge, showing people how they hunt, and all these YouTube channels with people teaching people how to hunt, and if they don't, people won't watch. So I don't know.
It's a vicious circle.
Yeah, it is.
And that's never going to change. There's so many more resources that are available to people today that we didn't have when we were kids,
so they could, like a young kid now can start out where I left off. What I learned in 40 years, they know.
Right.
Because these kids nowadays are incredible at how much information they pick up from this stuff. I'm amazed at how much these kids know when they come talk to me. And by kids, I don't mean kids. I mean, guys in their 30s or something, which are kids to me because I'm an old man. But, it's amazing how much they know. I had a young man come up to me at a show just recently and say, tell me how much he was inspired by one of the bucks I shot. And he said the one that scored so much, and I'm thinking, I had to go back and look. Wow, he really did score that much. I wonder how he knows that. I don't know if he looked it up in the books or what. I didn't even know it. But, some of my early bucks when I was a kid, when I had that big ego, I put in the record books and stuff. But, it's amazing how much they know. But if they take that knowledge that they have or that they've learned, and then the rest of their life they advance, they're going to become way better hunters than I am.
It's certainly possible.
I'm sure some of them will.
Yeah.
The ones that have the right mindset, they have the right wife behind them, and they like the challenge. If they got the right ingredients, they're going to take it a long ways.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna not succeed because of a lack of resources. Whether you hunt public, private, or whatever.
Right.
It all takes some good hard work.
I'm a big believer that you can do anything you want to. If you're physically capable and mentally capable of doing it, you can do it. If you want to be a football star and you start out young enough and you try hard enough, I think you can do it. You know, if you want to be a baseball star, or if you want to be the guy in hunting, anyone listening to this who's young enough, has a good enough start, and has the things behind them can do it. You just have to work hard enough to do it.
Right. I don't know how many times I told people that it's simple. It's just work. Mm-hmm. Whether it's selling real estate, selling cars.
The want factor.
Right.
You got to want it.
Yeah. And it's not something that you can put your hands on. Mm-hmm. I think, and I know we're getting a little philosophical here. Gavin, don't fall asleep. We need you, buddy. It's not something that you can put your hands on. It's just the satisfaction of doing the job right, mm-hmm. But also doing it ethically and honestly, mm-hmm. And playing by the rules. And whether that's business or deer hunting, and you've endured a lot of scrutiny, and you've persevered through that. And if there's one thing I could tell anybody, and I think you'd probably agree, if you want uncommon results, uncommon work is coming your way.
Right. Do everything like everybody else. You ain't getting nowheres. You're getting as far as they got.
No.
That's it.
It takes work. Mm-hmm. And whether it's wherever you work or in the deer woods, it boils down to work and want.
Right.
And I think wanting it for the right reasons has something to do with it too. But, Melanie asked me what we were going to talk about this morning. And I said, I don't have a clue. She's like, I don't know what we're going to talk about.
The best podcasts are the ones where you don't have a plan.
Yeah, I'd never have a plan. I just go with the flow. So, certainly my apologies for not, I guess, knowing how this was going to affect. I was hoping we'd be able to field some calls, and I've got a whole load of messages there. So I apologize to everyone. We'll have it fixed next time, probably. But how can you reference those shows? How can we find those?
My shows?
Yeah.
YouTube Hunt and Beast.
Okay.
So.
Anything else that you might want to let people know?
They might want to check out our custom gear. So Hunt and Beast gear is where I make the tree stands and sticks that I hunt out of, and that me and Mario developed, and I think that's some pretty cool stuff that if you hunt my way, you might like.
Definitely worth a look. Yeah, I have not used the stand, just because the ground that I was hunting, it didn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Things have changed, so I'll be changing that a little bit this year. But I have used the sticks a couple times. In the website for that is what again?
HuntingBeastGear.com.
Okay, HuntingBeastGear.com. I'll try and post that in the show notes when we put that out.
The YouTube show is really good, and I also have a website that is a forum. So it's kind of like a Facebook. Forums were kind of before Facebook.
Yep.
There's a lot of information on that website.
Yeah.
Especially like if you go into the deer hunting forum portion of it, at the top we have the greatest posts ever.
Posts ever, yep.
And that just has so much tactical information in it. It's always mind-boggling for new members.
That tactical thread is always an interesting one.
It is kind of a cool place too, because the whole world has got so divided, politically and everything else, that we.
I was going to ask you a political question, but I'm just going to shut my mouth.
It's probably a good idea. I have a tendency to offend people if I say anything political.
Oh man, yeah. Maybe nobody's watching and we could get away with it. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate you coming in. should we do it again?
Yeah, let's do it again.
Be good luck in Nebraska.
I really want to see you take off with this because I really love the shows you used to have. And, I'm glad to hear you're coming back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been quite a journey, but we're going to give it our best shot. All right. Thanks, everybody.